Alright, bet. Can you hear me
Yeah,
good?
y'all already know what it is, man. It's RPEntRadio. Hey, man, I know y'all enjoying y'all favorite tune right now, but I had to stop the music because I got a special guest in the building. Matter of fact, I ain't gonna introduce him. I'm gonna let him tell y'all who he is.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's your boy Monolog of Gideon's Army, man. We in the building, shout it. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, y'all heard it. Monolog from Gideon's Army, representing that ATL, Atlanta, Georgia, in the building. Man, before we go any farther, man, I want you to tell the people, man, how you get started. Like, it's good what you do, and listening, reading your story, and hearing your music. I want you to spread your message and tell people how you got started in this.
Man, just to be honest, like, man, a lot of folks don't know, like, before I got saved, bro, like, I was doing secular rap, man. I used to write poetry. And, some people from Outcast camp was like, bro, you ever thought about rapping? And man, I just started. I started with poetry, man. And I started rapping, man, and man, everything blew up for me, man. I was in the military, and a lot of folks like, man, what you doing in the military, bro? You should be out here getting it. And so I did shows, man. I was opening up for Outkast, 8 Ball MJG, you know. I mean, I was out there doing my thing. I opened up for Mystical one time, and then, God was calling me, and I couldn't run from it no more. Like, God was calling me, man, and it was at the same time, and, people could believe me or not, but it was at the same time Rough Riders was actually trying to sign me. And, like, I had no peace with it. Like, God was calling me so strong, I couldn't run from it no more. And so, like, I just gave it all up, man. I gave up the music. I gave up everything because I was like, man, my soul was more important. And so I decided to get saved. I was like, man, God knocking at the door, man, I can't run from it no more. So, man, I gave my life to Christ. And the church that I was attending, which is actually how I met EXO, the pastor was like, hey, man, you ever consider gospel rap? And back then, I was like, shit, like I wasn't really on that. But, it just grew into what it is now. And it's just how it happened.
That's what's up. So, how old was you when you was writing your poetry?
Man, I was doing poetry, bro. Like, I want to say like 7th grade. I was like, man, in 7th grade. And when I got to rapping, bro, I was probably like I think I was a sophomore in high school, man. I was like a sophomore in high school. And one of the dudes that I was in school with, like, he was big time with Outkast and them crew. And, he was like, he was telling, and they was doing their thing. They was doing stuff with the Dungeon family. They was making music and all this stuff. And he was reading my poetry. He's like, bro, you ever thought about rapping?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where it came from. Like, straight up and down. And when he said that, it was like a light bulb clicked in my head, man. And that's where I started, real talk.
So, I read that one of your favorite songs is by the Williams Brothers. I'm just a nobody, and I know you
Um,
said, go ahead. Uh,
yeah, like, I'm not gonna say it's one of my favorite songs, but that's where I got the inspiration for, That's What We Own. That's What We Own was on our last project, Hedges and Highways. It was our first Billboard charting album. And that was like our lead single. Like, That's What We Own. And the hook, I got it from a Williams Brothers song where it was like, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody. And I put that hood swag to it, and the song actually took off, man. We got a lot of radio play, a lot of feedback from that song, bro. So, yep,
yeah,
that's where it
that's what's
came
up.
from.
And see, reason why I asked that because thinking about your journey, and I think it's more important for people like you to explain what you went through. So I want to know especially living in a city as great as Atlanta, when it comes down to the hip hop music scene, things like that. What was your influences before? And you said God was calling you, so how did those influences as well integrate together, like the Christian music and the secular music?
Well, man, I grew up, man, on that soulful music, bro. Like that soulful rap music. Like my favorite artist right now to this day is Andre 3000, man, from Outkast. Like I feel like he had a balance of, talking that real, but at the same time, like his metaphors, his punchlines. I think he's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT, if you ask me. I know a lot of people say other stuff, but Andre 3000, man, is like my guy. And it don't mean that I agree with all his messages all the time, but he was a very conscious dude. But like I grew up on that kind of music, the 8 Balls, the MJGs, the Pimp C's and the UGK, and the Goody Mobs. Like it was a soulful sounding music that really had a message to it. And that was my biggest influence. And when I first started doing the gospel rap, you know, I, I, I just wanted to have that same thing. Like I love the soulful sound. I know a lot of people used to get in his army, bringing that crunk stuff, and I'm from Atlanta, so I'm from that era of the crunk music. But I think that's why this project is so good to me and feels so right for me, because it's like even though I'm part of that crunk era, like that's not really what I'm on. Like I believe in bringing a message. Believe in that soulful music that still have a message, man. And that's really where this project came from. So, of course, I've been influenced, or I'm not gonna say influenced, but like inspired by a lot of our gospel artists, like the Lecraes and the Trip Lees, and the Thizzles and the Bizzles. Like I'm inspired by those guys because of what I seen them do. And I think when GA came on the scene, our whole thing was like we was trying to make Christianity seem cool. But at the end of the day, when we came out, we was doing stuff a little different than anybody else. Like our first single was produced by Grand Hustle. Our video in 2011 when we dropped That's Them, like our videos didn't look like all the Christian videos that you had seen. So like we came out with a spirit of excellence, but we was really trying to show that Christianity, like you could be saved and still be cool, or like, man, there's Christian folks out here, man, they're still cool, and that was our aim. But like now, like I'm really on something different where it's kind of like, man, I really want to impact the people with with this message of Jesus Christ, man, and just being transparent with them.
And that's what's up, and that's a lot of things, cause I've been following y'all from the beginning, and I did notice that, and I'm glad you talked about that. I want you to explain to people how did y'all. I kind of want to get into about how y'all met, but I also want to see what made y'all do some of the things y'all did, like you said, and trying to make people think Christian is being cool. Cause it was cool to me to see how y'all was taking the songs off the radio and making the spins off that, and let people know, hey, you can still have this nice beat but say something powerful behind it. Like how y'all, it was, to me, it was kind of funny, but it made sense. Like how you did the Amen and then the goofy video
Right,
behind it. But I got the message. And
right,
then on the latest mixtape, like y'all did the Take Me to the King remix, and the
right,
We Still in This. So I'm like,
right,
man, it's awesome, because even myself, like in church, I deal with third and fourth graders during Sundays, and they know every little song on the radio. But when I play stuff like y'all, so I like, if y'all gonna learn these songs, learn these, cause they saying something. So that's why it was so
right.
important for me to have you tell me like how y'all got together and how y'all said, hey, well, let's take this Holy Ghost song by Rick Ross and make it mean something. When y'all did the Jesus piece and the video showing them it ain't really about just wearing a Jesus piece, it's about keeping them inside you.
Man, and what's so crazy is a lot of people miss that message, man. what happened is when I got saved, bro, when I couldn't run no more, I got saved. And Esso is one of the first people I met when I got saved. He was already saved. He was a part of the church that I was going to. And, he was from Georgia. I was from Georgia. We clicked up. I was in the studio because, I was doing secular rap. And we hooked up, man, and I ended up taking them to the studio that I was going to. And, man, we just, he was like my big brother in the Lord, man. He was teaching me the ways of the Lord. He was discipling me, and like I was out there. I was out there when I got saved. So, man, I used to call SO because I was in the military at that time. We was both in the military. Actually, all three of us was in the military. I was in the military at that time, so I used to call SO and be like I was a fighter, bro. Like, man, if you looked at me wrong, we gonna have a problem. So, like, I used to call SO, be like, hey, bro, man, I was like, hey, SO, man, I just bust this dude in the mouth, bro. Like, man, I need help, or I need you to pray for me, man. Like, so like that's really how we built a relationship. And Malachi came later on. He was doing his gospel rap thing, and man, he came to our church, and like he had just never seen anything like that before. So that's how we hooked up. And when we hooked up, it was kind of like all of our music abilities, like all of us, like Malachi had been offered a big contract from Universal, and he turned it down because they were like he couldn't say Jesus' name. And me and Enzo both had did our thing in the secular arena, and man, we just hooked up, and we was part of a large group at our church in Virginia when we was all in the military, and they wouldn't really let us go out there like that. And God was really calling on me and pulling on me to really take this message to the world. And so that's when we just decided, hey, man, let's move back to the A, and, man, let's start this thing off. And so we kicked off in 2011 with Gideon's Army. And, man, it just, like, blew up overnight for us, man. Like, I don't know many people who had the testimony that we had. We started in 2011. 2012, man, we was nominated for all kind of awards. Our Jesus Peace song took off. We did our mixtape before the Jesus Piece, before the mainstream album. We did the Bringing Jesus to the Hood mixtape, and man, it took off, bro. I mean, it was beyond our expectations. And man, we was just making music, dog. We just like, we all some hood dudes. We all came from that background. Like, people say like, oh, people they trying to be like the world, but like, no, that ain't us. And I tell people all the time, like, some folks, hey, if you grew up a nerd and you got saved, man, you still a nerd, but you just a nerd that loves Jesus. Like, and we tell folks all the time, like, man, we ain't trying to be like nobody. We ain't front end like we nobody else, man. But you dealing with some dudes, like you dealing with some dudes that's been locked up, man. I've been locked up about 20 times, all of us got real testimonies. But when we got saved, like, God didn't change He didn't change our outer appearance. So, like, we ain't trying to dress like the world. We ain't trying to be like the world. We ain't trying to talk like the world. This is how we sound. But, He changed our hearts. And that's pretty much what it boiled down to. So when we did music, we tried to attack it with that same heart. So, like, we not the guys that, try to, bash the world, but we tried to show folks a different way to look at it. Even when folks was putting out songs that a lot of folks felt was blasphemous and all that kind of stuff, we just tried to put another twist on it. Like, we understood the amen, and that's what our song was talking about. Like, you got these dudes out here, and when they come to your church, that's all you give them is church. Y'all not giving them Jesus. Y'all not giving them a relationship. Y'all giving them religion. Y'all giving them false doctrine and fake teaching. And then we wonder why they making the mockery of the church, because we're not really giving them the gospel. And so that's the way we try to attack everything, man. Like, man, we not perfect. We ain't got it all together. But at the same time, we love the Lord, man. And so we just tried to give people the heart of Christ, man. And so, you can see, and then at the end of the day, we didn't get everything right from the beginning, but you can see as our music, progress, you can see a difference in growth, a difference in relationship. You can see all that.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yep.
So like, I'm glad you was able to explain that message from your words, cause it's like it's better hearing it from you, cause you did it. What branch of the military was
Right.
you in?
Man, I was in the Navy, man. Me and SO was both in the Navy. Malachi was in the Air Force. So, yeah.
Okay, so you was a seaman. You was in the water.
Yes, so.
I said, and while you was in the military, was you still doing the music then, or is that when you was transitioning?
Yeah, I was doing the music in the military. Like I said, I was actually doing secular music while I was in the military, man. I had a deal on the table with Rough Riders while I was still in the military. Like they was actually talking about buying my contract out. But it was the same time when God was dealing with me so much that I couldn't run from it no more. And and that's when I just was like, man, I just gave it all up. I thought it was it for music for me. Like I thought, like I couldn't do music no more. I wanted to get saved, and that was it. So I left the music alone, and like I said, that's when I met So, man, and that's what things just took off.
Did you always go by the same name that you go by now?
Yes, sir, man. I was monologue in the world. When I was doing secular rap, man, I was monologue, but my monologue had a different meaning back then. And when I got saved, I was trying to change my name, but God told me to keep my name, and He just gave me a different meaning for it. When I was in the world, it's because, like I said, yeah, like I told you, Andre was like my biggest influence, man. So, like, man, I had them bars, in the secular arena, man. Like I had them bars, and I felt like every time I rapped, it was kind of like everybody had, a monologue. When you talking about plays or stuff like that, it's kind of like those speeches that had everybody's attention, like the Friends, Romans, Countrymen's, lend me your ear. Like that was a monologue, and I felt like that's how it was when I rapped. But like when I was trying to change my name and God told me to keep my name, and He gave me a different meaning for it, which was mono, which was one, and LOG, leaning on God. So I was one that was leaning on God, man. And one thing I say about me, every time I do anything, anytime I touch the mic, whether I'm preaching, teaching, rapping, any of that, like I don't do nothing in my name. Right? It ain't in my own power. It don't have nothing to do with me. But man, it's always God, bro. I'm always pointing the glory back to Jesus Christ, because man, it don't have nothing to do with me. And so that's where the name come from. Like mono means one, and LOG, leaning on God.
That's what's up. So you also preach as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've been a minister for about 6 years, bro.
Oh, that's what's up. So you are you you just have you just preach at different churches, or are you starting your own church, or how this going?
Right now, I got album release party. Like I'm going to Jacksonville October 10th, do an album release concert. But then, I got a church that want me to stay that Sunday and teach that Sunday morning at their church. Man, I've been fighting off, the calling to start my own for a while now, but like God has really been dealing with me about it. And just because like my views on ministry has changed so much, my views on the church has changed so much, man. I got songs on my album that's really dealing about it, that's really talking about it and dealing with it, because I feel like we're teaching our folks, false teaching. We're giving them religion. We're giving them tradition instead of giving them the gospel of Jesus Christ. And which is the good news. And so, like, I've been fighting it off, man, but 2016, I'm going to start something. I'm not saying I'm starting a church, but, I'm talking to a couple of people, man, and we're really going to start, even if we start doing something once a month, whether it's just a service that we do once a month. And I really want to give people the gospel, because I'm just, like, it's hard for me to sit in church. Like, it's hard for me to sit in churches because, like, I hear the the fakeness, the falseness, the stuff we making folks feel like they got to dress up, or like, well, once you reach this level in God, then you'll feel like you need to dress up and this and that. It's like we preach and teach so much tradition, man, and nobody's really teaching folks relationship with God. We teach this hierarchy in our churches where it's like the pastor is this and the pastor is that, where really, it ain't about the pastor at all. And and so God's really been dealing with me, man. So 2016, I'm definitely gonna start something along with a couple of my brothers, man. We're gonna start something, like I said, even if it's just a monthly service or whatever, man, just to give people the real gospel.
Well, like you said, we rooting for you here. I hope everything works out for that. So just thinking about what you just said and knowing that you are living in Atlanta, and I know you also travel. When you get to travel, do you ever get a chance to visit other churches?
Yeah, I do, man. I visit a lot of churches, actually.
And the reason why I asked that question because I noticed you probably heard of Emmanuel and Philip Hudson, and they made the little funny church song. And thinking about what you're
right.
saying, it kind of reminds me of the same scenario. And I'm like, well, they from Atlanta too, so it's like, is this what you see living in Atlanta when you go to different churches, just people playing church, or is it just when you go out in all these different areas, you see it everywhere?
Man, to be honest with you, and just to keep it 1,000, man, I feel like a lot of our urban churches, man, a lot of our black churches, if I keep it real, man, I just feel like we have a strong sense of tradition. And it's sad to say, but like I don't see it when I go to other ethnic churches. When I go to the white church or this or that. Like, man, when I go to the white church or the other ethnic churches, like they're really teaching a relationship with God. They not they not caught up on all that. When I go to a traditional black church, all across the world. Like, well, all across the country. Because I can say when I was in Africa, like, I saw none of this. When we did our tour in Africa, I saw none of this. But in the U.S., when I'm going to our traditional black churches, a lot of them are, we teach tradition so much that we don't really have a relationship with God. And so, like, our relationship with God, or we feel like the anointing showed up you know, when the drummer or the keyboard player start playing a certain beat and people shouting or running around the church, and it's like they're not having an encounter with God. It's like I would say it like this is bad. It's a form of godliness. It's not godliness, but it's a form of godliness. And it's a form of godliness because this is what we've been taught all our life. When we go to church, we feel like the Spirit moved if this happened. You had people falling out. If you had the keyboard player playing this and 50 people got to shouting, like, then we equate that as the move of the Spirit. When the church that I go to now, to be honest, it's a large church, but me and my family, we like one of the only black families in there. But, at the end of the day, like, they preach the gospel. Like, they not caught up on their building. They got coffee and water all for free. You can come in there and get it, take it right in the sanctuary. But listen, they all in t-shirts, they in jeans, whatever. But the man preaches the gospel. I was going there for a month before I even knew the pastor's name. His name wasn't on the sign. Nobody introduced him and saying, presenting the some, the introducing the others. None of that took place. His picture wasn't on the offering envelope. None of that. He preached the gospel. And when I say, and this is how I tell people the difference from the gospel, I told them I've been to many churches, being saved. And when you leave, the preacher preached on sin so much that, let's say you was fornicating or whatever, that you left and was like, man, I need to text all these women. I'm done with this. I'm not doing this no more. But that lasted only for a little bit amount of time, because it was emotional. But I go there The pastor don't preach on sin. He not talking about sin, none of this or that. Like, what? Of course he speaks on sin. He's not, he's not saying sin is okay, but he preaches the gospel. And when you preach the gospel, it makes somebody question their heart. And when your heart is questioned, when they reach your heart, they don't have to come down on gays or lesbians. They don't have to hammer in on fornication or adultery. They don't have to hammer in on lying or this and that. When they preach the gospel and really question your heart of how much do you love God, when you leave, like, your whole life has changed. Your life has changed because now you're questioning your own heart instead of sitting there trying to question your actions. Like, we make salvation about us so much when it has nothing to do with us. Like, we base our salvation on, or you ask someone, why are you holy? And you ask somebody that in traditional church, and they'll run down the list of all the sins they don't commit. They'll run down the list of, the things they don't do. And that's what they equate as their holiness. When our holiness has nothing to do with us. Our salvation has nothing to do with us, but all because of what Jesus Christ did on the cross. Like, even the Bible says, our righteousness is as filthy rags. So we look at ourselves, which is, self-righteous. We look at ourselves and like, oh, I don't do this. Oh, I don't do that. Oh, I don't do this. So I'm righteous. But if we realize that our own righteousness, I don't care what list of rules that you follow, you're still filthy rags in the eye of the King. We only righteous because we put on Jesus when we stand before God. And that's it. And so, man, it's all around the country, man. I can't say certain state or nothing, man. I think, we have a lot of churches all across the states that really locked in on tradition, man, instead of teaching relationship with God.
And I agree, and I'm glad you said that, because the next segment I want to get into is you and your solo project, and because that's what I feel that you bring in. Like, that's why I think you said that's why you call it transparency, because it's not about the traditions, and it's about letting people know what's real and letting people know who you are, even when you accept the blood of Jesus Christ. Because I think you even said some people believe, oh, I'm saved, I'm never gonna sin again, my life gonna be perfect, which is you. Me and you
Right.
both should know that's not the truth. So I want you to
Not
expand
the
on
truth
that,
at all.
how the that was how your path was, trying to explain that, because a lot of people, like you said, traditionally, like, you can't tell people it's hard being a Christian. So it's like, I
Right.
know when you putting out your new music and stuff, and you working, certain people probably looking at you like, you can't say that. So I want you to tell people about that, and if you got any backlash, how's everything going, and how long was the process putting this album together, doing something as special as that.
Man, to be honest with you, no lie, man, this has been like a 3-year process now. What happened was, with me going through divorce and all this and that, man, it was like, man, a lot of my friends, like, I was an assistant pastor before I started divorce. Like, and I saw everybody turn on me. Like, I went from anointed man of God to like heathen of the world. And when I went through that, it was kind of like, I had no friends. And it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because during that time, I couldn't call on nobody else except God. And when that happened, it was like God started giving me his revelation. I wasn't dependent on the pastor. I wasn't dependent on church. I wasn't dependent on what somebody else told me. I was only dependent on God because I had pretty much cut everybody else off. And so when that was taking place, like, God started revealing a whole bunch of stuff to me, and I started realizing a lot of the stuff that we had been preaching in our churches wasn't the gospel. so, man, during that time, man, it was rough. I started my album and, like, I, I raced it off and started over. I was like, no, I can't do this. And God kept telling me, listen, give these people what I'm telling you to give them. And, it wasn't until, man, this is really when I accepted it. Me and Esso, we had a event, uh, probably almost over a year ago. We had an event, and we was both working on our solo projects, and he was like, "Hey, we gonna do our group thing, but hey, let's give them a teaser from both our albums. Let's do a song from both our albums." And I was scared to do it because I was like, I don't know how the church arena was gonna receive my message, and we got on stage. We was doing our thing, getting his arm in. We always shut the show down. We was going crazy. And SO did a snippet from his album. And it was time for me to do a snippet from my album. And I was like, you know what? Cut the beat. I'm going to do this a cappella. And I spit my intro verse for my album. And the people went crazy. When I got off stage, SO was right there. He was the first one. He grabbed me. He was like, bro. Because he hadn't heard nothing from my album yet, neither. He was like, bro, do you hear what you just said? He was like, bro, that was crazy. Like he was big upping me. Like, bro, your album, like, that verse was so stupid. He was like, bro, that's fat. And when I got off stage, we used to the pictures and autographs and this and that. But what happened was I had more people, like I had ministers who was calling me to the side in tears, talking to me and pulling me to the side. Like, bro, how you let God use you? And they begin to open up, and it was like, bro, I'm dealing with this, man. Or I'm dealing with this issue. Or I'm dealing with that issue. And like, man, I just need help. So it was like God's way of showing me, like, man, this is what the people need. And so from that point on, I kind of let go and I just let God have his way. And the whole pretense behind the album was, listen, Christian stories always sound the same. Our testimony always sound the same. It's like, hey, I was going through this, or I dealt with these sins, or I was dealing with depression, or I went through not having enough finances or hard times or whatever. But then I met Jesus. And that's always how a story goes. And so then you have the person who's not a Christian, and they hear all these stories, and God's knocking at their heart, and they decide to give their life to Christ. And when they come to Christ, they expect their story to go that way because that's all we tell them. So when they get saved, they expect not to have hard times. They expect not to deal with sins no more. They expect not to have no lust. They expect they always have enough money. They expect everything to go right because now they met Jesus, because that's the only story we tell them. And, like God was showing me, like, in no way ever are we justifying any sins. In no way are we doing that. But at the end of the day, man, we've built our life on a lie. We're scared to be transparent because of the lie we've preached across the pulpit for so long. Paul in the Bible had no reason. He had no problem being transparent. Letting folks know the things that I want to do is things that I don't do. When I go to do right, evil is always present. Like, I had a thorn in the flesh. I prayed to God 3 times, and God told me his grace is sufficient. We can look at David, and David messed up, but what David do? Like, hey, fell into the face of the Lord. Lord, just don't take your glory away from me. Don't take your anointing away from me. Like, we look at all these men in the Bible, and they wasn't scared to be transparent. And the reason we scared to be transparent these days is because we done built ourselves up. We done built ourselves up to the fact that we're perfect. And so now we can't go tell these people, man, that we got struggles or we got issues, because we done presented ourselves as perfect already. So now they not gonna receive us. And so, like, God was showing me, it was like, man, when people come to God, and they expect their life to go that way, and it don't go that way, they feel like they're not good enough. And when you feel like you're not good enough for something, what do? You give up. And so they'll give up on Christ, they'll give up on going to church, they give up on trying to have a relationship with God because they feel like they're not good enough. And so when us as the leaders, as the preachers, as the ministers, as the forerunners of the gospel, when we start letting folks know, hey bro, I'm not perfect neither. No, I'm not justifying sin. But guess what? Everything ain't always peaches and cream. Sometimes I got issues too. Sometimes I deal with depression too. Sometimes I deal with hard times too. Sometimes I gotta lay on my face too because lust might enter in. Like all that stuff. And once you start telling people that story, it make them say, oh, dang. Hey, man, I could be a Christian too. Like, oh, man, this Christian that I look up to is telling me, like, they have struggles too. Man, I had an interview with a secular radio station last week, and a female was interviewing me, and she was asking me questions, about, like, what about the women? I know the women coming at you at this and this and that, and I knew she expected the good Christian answer. Like, man, I love God, I love my wife, so none of that's a problem. That's a great, valid answer. But how did you help? How did you help someone who loves God and loves their wife, but still, has fleshly issues that they're trying to overcome? And so when I gave her my answer, I told her, strapping down, like, hey, it's hard, but guess what? Me and my boys, when we travel, we always said, listen, if our wives not with us, I don't care how much money the promoter got, how much they paying us, and they get us all a suite. No, if our wives not with us, we stand in one room. Like, we've had promoters that hit us up saying, man, the women asking, well, I'm taking y'all out to eat at. They trying to figure out what hotel y'all staying in. Man, I done took pictures and the women whispering in my ear, asking me this, asking me that, trying to slide their numbers to me, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like I say, like a good Christian, somebody who loves God, don't mean that, man, when I'm in the wrong situation, I can always make the right choice. But a good Christian says, listen, I'm going to do everything I can to keep myself out of the wrong situations. So we always said, listen, we'll stay in one room regardless of anything. If our wife's not with us, we stand together. And that's how we keep each other accountable. So like I can hear in their voice, like, wow, that's not the answer we expected from a Christian. We expect you to say, like, man, I love God and I love my wife, but how much help did you give somebody? And I feel like when you give a real answer, being transparent, let them know, listen, I'm made of flesh just like you are, but here's a solution we came up with how to deal with the flesh. And so now you got dudes who can say, oh man, that's a good one. Maybe we can incorporate that into what we do. Hey, man, let's all stay in the same room so now we can keep each other accountable. And I feel like that's what transparency is, man. It's not about making an excuse for sin. It's not about, we ain't pretending that we just super deep or just super spiritual or like we got it all together. But we saying, hey, listen, we don't have it all together, and that's why we need Jesus. But since we don't have it all together, here's some practical ways of dealing with our flesh. And I just feel like that's what it is. Like we try to make, in no way am I downplaying the relationship with Jesus or relationship in, dying to your flesh daily. But, outside of dying to yourself daily, there's some stuff that you're not dead to yet. So when you're not dead with it to certain things yet, let's find some practical ways to be able to deal with our flesh. Even like Paul was saying, I wish all people could be like me. But guess what? It's better to marry than to burn. When he said that, it was an example of practical living. Like, hey, I wish all y'all could just be like Bump sex. Forget it. I don't need no wife. I don't need no man. I wish all y'all could be like that. But I'm telling you, like, if that's not your stance, hey, it's better to marry than to burn. What he was doing was giving us practical teaching, like, hey, he might have been saying, hey, I don't have this problem with lust. It don't bother me. But for y'all that it do bother, hey, here's another way to deal with it. Go get you a husband. Go get you a wife. So, yeah, point blank period.
Yeah, man. Man, I really appreciate your powerful message, and I hope we can reach the masses because, like I said, I'm really feeling everything you got going. So, like I said, we're getting close to the wrap up. I want you to go ahead and tell the people about the album, the single, the releases, uh, the features, all that good stuff.
Alright, check this out. Excuse me. Transparency, the album, September 29th, man. Make sure y'all get it. I think, man, it's going to be a blessing to a lot of people. Man, I keep it 100. I exposed myself on this album, even though, like, I was scared to expose myself. But I felt like, it's really what the people needed. So September 29th, actually pre-sales start on Monday. I want to say that's the 14th of September, man. The album will be available on iTunes for pre-sale. I got one song that y'all can download. Anybody who buy the album in advance, you can get one song for the right then on the spot. We got the Transparency single, which is the title track for the album, featuring my boy T-Strike, Transparency, which really sums up the album. I also have the Tears on Fire video that's out right now. Just showing that, man, it's still good men out there. It's a lot of dudes that might not be with their baby mama or their ex or this or that, but man, there's still some dudes out here, man, who really take care of their kids and who do what they got to do. So the Tears on Fire really tells my story of going through divorce and used to seeing my kids every day, but now they 16 hours away from it, so all I got is FaceTime calls or when I have them for the summer. So, man, y'all just check it out, man. It's a real album, man. It's a real album. I ain't pulling no punches. I ain't telling no lies. I ain't on no traditional. At the same time, man, it's the gospel of Jesus Christ. So, Transparency, September 29th. It's your boy Monolog, man. You go like my page on Facebook, which is Monolog. Holler at me on Twitter or Instagram, Monolog GA. And man, get in his army, man. We got some big things in the works, man. We got some big things on the way, so y'all be on the lookout. It's your boy Monolog, Mr. Okay. Let go.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Hey, and before we let you go, man, you're an artist, and we all about the music in our station, so we always got to ask people that's artists to lace us with something, like I said, so give us a quick acapella or something, let the people know what you're about.
Alright, bro. Well, man, I'm gonna spit that verse, man. I've been having a lot of people asking for verses, man. So I'm just spit this verse, man. It's the intro to my album. It's the intro, and here we go. I was gonna lie to y'all. And not little white ones, but sky blue ones, so they look beautiful and they sound all fly to y'all. My life is cooler than winter, no drama, not at all. And I be spranging over some of my issues and never fall. Okay, you don't want to hear the truth, well here it go then. Claiming to owe me dead, so why the tag ain't on my toe then? God is mystical, but the devil in my face like, here I go then. Took a bite of the apple, how in the heck I'm supposed to go windows? All the issues, but your boy on something different now. Cause I can smell the bull coming without sniffing now. Don't even want to go to church no more. It's open 9 to 5, but they ain't about to work no more. Okay, it's all about who can dress the best and can fake it better. Pretend they Supermans, all I'm seeing is crooked letters. And don't you make a mistake because it ain't going in, but it can all be forgiven if you got offering. Take it from me cause I've been there. Went and filed for divorce and went from preacher man to sinner. Same ones that's talking loudest, the same ones that's turning back and then throwing salt on my name. No what kind of Christian is that? Huh? And I ain't bitter, but my eyes wide open. Followers of the Christ, but yet they guidelines broken. Church supposed to be full of shade because they blinds ain't open. Supposed to be bearing fruit, but yet they vines all broken. Huh? So I'ma preach the truth no matter who would disagree. No matter if they got this diploma or that degree. Folks living in boxes cause y'all jacking up the history, but I thought I can change the world by giving y'all transparency. Transparency, September 29th. Let go, homie.
Yeah, man. Like I said, man, appreciate all the love, man. This was a powerful interview. And like I said, I thank you for your support. And man, we finna go on and get out of here. But before we go, we gotta do the one last thing, and let's let you introduce this single that we about to play right next, right after the interview. Cause the next thing we're gonna hear is you. I don't got to say it. We're gonna let you tell the people what we finna hear next.
Hey man, it's your boy Monolog, Gideon's Army, bro. Transparency in store September 29th. And this the title track from the album Transparency featuring my boy T-Strike. Y'all rock with your boy. We on RPEntRadio. Let's go.